Well, like I had one yesterday, and I had a realtor call me and saying, hey, can you waive the appraisal? Can you waive, the home inspection? And I said, absolutely not. I didn't even call the buyer.
Right.
Because you know what? I would recommend them not doing that.
Of course.
Especially on, buying.
First-time home buyers,
Right.
because they do get nervous. I mean,
And again, any attorney sometimes will tell you not to do it. So I had to explain to the buyer, hey, you lost the deal. I'm just telling you what happened. Somebody else waived the appraisal and waived the home inspection. And they said, you know what? We would never do that. I said, thank you very much, because they called me and I said you weren't going to do that without calling me. And she said, you know what? I know you have my best interests in hand, and I know you're treating me like I'm your own daughter. Please, by all means, do that.
And that just happened. That's why I was late today, because I was on the phone. You were waiting for me. Same thing happened with they want pushing, and, we're like, that's not what we agreed upon. We're absolutely not doing that. I did call the buyer just to fill them in, and they were like, it's so appreciative of the fact that, we have their back. We're not just going to do something to get the deal done and, have them agree to something that they're not comfortable with. And I think that goes a long way.
Absolutely.
Because that's how we get future business. People refer. If they don't trust you, if they don't, if they get their house, but at the end they're like questioning everything, and they're like, you know what, I feel like I was kind of strong-armed into this. I feel like someone talked me into this. I really didn't want to do this, but they told me it would be okay. That's not a good thing.
And speaking about future business, my business is built on a lot of referrals from people I've dealt with. One of my first customers, I still remember today. We went to look at a house in Fairfield, and it was during the middle of a snowstorm. So they were just getting engaged, and we go look at the house. It was a wreck, needed everything, okay? When you go in and you're scared to touch a doorknob or whatever, the house needs everything.
Been there.
So they were asking $200,000 for the house. The buyers came in and said, you know what, we really like it. I know it needs a lot of work, all nervous and everything. And, I explained to them, yes, it needs a lot of work. I know you're going to have to redo everything. They're asking $200,000, and they asked for my opinion. What do you think? I said, I'd offer them $160,000 for a big house back in the early 90s. He goes, yeah, you know what? I'll pay probably like $180,000 or so for the house. I said, yeah, but we're going to start lower. He goes, yeah, but you got my whatever. I go, we write up the offer, $160,000. I call the agent, I want to go present it. My broker comes to me and says, are you crazy going in at $160,000? They're asking $200,000. You can't go and offer him that. I said, why can't I go offer him $160,000? Well, it's a lot lower than the asking.
Right. People think that they're going to get offended. They don't want to.
They're going to offend. Right. They're going to offend the sellers. I said, you know what? I said, this is what they're offering. I'm going to go present it, and we'll go from there.
Because if they have a better offer,
they're going to take it. But this is back in the day when negotiations were there. I'm sitting in front of the seller with the other agent there, and I explained to them the house needed a lot of work and this, that, and the other thing. And my buyers offered you $160,000. She stood there, and I said, look, go talk to your agent. You don't have to answer me. See what's, talk amongst yourselves. The seller comes back and says, you know what, I talked to my agent, but before we go anywhere, I just want you to know, haven't opened up the built-in pool in years, don't know what it's like. My bathroom downstairs doesn't work. Meanwhile, I know my guy's doing everything.
Right.
So she looks at me and she goes, you know what, I'll take the $160,000. Signed the offer right there and then.
And you saved them?
Saved them $40,000, went back, got to the office, the brokers started laughing. So how'd you do this, that, and the other thing? I put my face like I was drooping there, and finally I took out the file and I said, here, they signed the offer, $160,000. I said, you just don't know.
You don't?
I called the buyer, said, congratulations, you're going to be a first-time homeowner. Wow, we got it for $180,000. I said, no, you got it for $160,000. But you know how ecstatic they were for $160,000. They referred me so much business. They got married, redid the entire house, okay? Ended up buying a lot in town, ended up giving me their house to sell, which I got the most money for them when they sold. When they were ready to sell their house, it was over well into $1.7 million, $1.8 million, which was a lot of money for our town. And everybody was telling him back, but this is going back in 2006, everybody was telling him, you know what, you need to use an agent that does these types of houses, that, an office that, only does this. And you know what his answer was? His answer was, no. Vito sold me my first house. He sold me a flip. He sold a lot of my friends and family houses. And I'll never forget what he did for me. And he actually called me up and I sold his house.
Doesn't that make you feel so good?
It makes me feel great because, you know what? I did something good for him. And in return, he remembered. And
It doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen all the time. But the other thing with this gentleman, too, is he ended up making a lot of money, got a great job, making a lot of money. And I'll never forget, and one of the reasons I actually own the car I own today is because of him. He bought a Ferrari, okay? And he got his Ferrari. What did he do? First thing he did, called me up, came and picked me up and took me for a ride. And I was like, wow, you know what? He didn't have to do that.